Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Sienna here with a brand new video. Today, you're joining me at the start of my long weekend in my comfy outfit because this is just how we roll today. I told you guys in a community post that I was going to talk to you a little bit about a shamanic journey I had actually a week ago today as of day of recording. And I wanted to share that with you because one, I thought it was really cool, and two, I thought maybe a lot of you guys would be really interested in it and thought it might be something that you would like to look more into, or maybe we could talk about more on my channel. Before we get to that, I want to talk about, now I don't have anything scripted or planned here. I'm literally going through all my papers that I've got. So I guess I just want to give you a little bit of context before we go into this. I had gotten a second master's attunement done. And when I say master's attunement, for those who are not familiar, that is a Reiki term. I already had my master level. I'd gotten it back in 2019, but there was an issue, and I'm not going to go too much into it. I can't spill too much tea on my old teacher because she's not even here anymore to defend herself, and I don't feel like dealing with her from the other side. But all I'm going to say is that there were some issues, and I was not ever given my proper certification, so I couldn't actually go forward and teach Reiki officially. So anyways, I got working with a different Reiki master. She lives actually pretty close to my area. Her name's Susan Hanlon, and her business is called Journey With Me. So what I will do is leave a link in the description, and if I can put a card up around here somewhere leading to her website, and she has an Instagram as well. She's brilliant. She's such a good teacher. I highly recommend her, either for healing sessions. I think she does them via distance. Or if you have any questions about energy healing or spirituality or anything like that, she's so good, and she's so kind, and she was just wonderful. I had her come to my house last week, which was actually really amazing because most teachers won't go that far, but she knew some of my circumstances at the time, and I just wasn't really able to leave the house. So she came to me. She gave me, here's a lovely little diagram of the Reiki ideals. Now this is something you learn early on, but I thought it was so pretty I had to show you guys. She also gave me the materials I needed to be able to teach. So now I can actually finish the Reiki curriculum that I've been working on for it's been probably closer to a year now, that I've been talking about off and on my channel. I know some of you guys have not forgotten about it, and I have had people asking, is it done? Is it ready? Are you ready to teach? She gave you some amazing, detailed instructions on how to give an attunement to someone else and how to teach others. Now, I did learn, you guys are getting a kind of a Reiki master lesson here, just a mini one. I did learn a few years ago about Daikumyo, which is this symbol right here. It is the master symbol. It means great enlightenment or bright shining light. And then I also learned both grounding symbols called Raku. My first master training with my other teacher, I had learned this symbol, but I had never learned this one. And these ones, they mean the same thing, but they have very different energy. So before we get into the whole shamanic journey part, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the meditative experiences that I had. She had me get into a really relaxed state. She gave me a guided meditation. Oh my goodness, this lady is so cool. She is a shaman, and she does a lot of work actually with First Nations spirituality. But she does practice a little bit of traditional, what is called Usui Reiki. She brought like feathers, she brought a drum, she brought a singing bowl, and oh my God, we just had a great time with the meditation. So she got me to think about this symbol, Daikumyo, and got me to relax, got me to rest. And during this time, I actually found myself, now this is just in the subconscious, of course, I was just sitting on my couch the entire time, but just in my subconscious, I found myself in this dark room. And was kind of cool because I was shown this dark room had a bed, it had a little kitchenette, it had a bathroom, it had everything, and that was to represent that all of my needs were met and that it was safe for me to come into this space. And then I saw, it was almost like somebody turned on a light, except it was like a purple, almost like a UV light. It was this dark purple light. And she got me to meditate, think about this symbol. And what I had seen was just like black, just like this, but a purple highlight around everything. And now this is going to be weird because I don't normally pick up like smells and stuff or tastes, you know, when it comes to intuitive information. But this symbol smelled and tasted like black licorice, which I thought was insanely weird. I'd never experienced anything quite like that before. So that was a fun experience. I didn't see any beings in that room. However, I did feel an overarching, overwhelming presence. It was just this really chill guy. And he's like, just rest here. Like, you can come here anytime. Your needs are all met. You can rest here. You're safe here. This is a place for you to learn. So it's nice. And I was just kind of told, not like told like I heard it, but you know, when you just get information, you just feel it, that it was like, you can come back at any time. So I am going to tell you a little bit about Daikumyo. And I'm just going to read off of here what my teacher had sent to me. Where to apply Daikumyo symbol during healing. Using the Reiki Master symbol enhances the healing effects of every form of Reiki healing. So in level 1, we learned something called Shokurei, which is like place the power of the universe here. Then we learned Seihei-ki, which is mental and emotional calm. Then we learned Hanshize Shonen, which is healing over space and time, distant healing. And then as we go forward, there's more symbols. This is like the granddad of all the symbols. The symbol is usually used with every Reiki healing, whether individual or group, hands-on or distant when aimed at an individual, a thing, or a situation, which is nice. You can use Daikumyo to not just heal yourself and others, but to bring peace to a chaotic situation or to some drama or to anywhere that there's tension. To apply the symbol during a Reiki healing session, you say it 3 times in your head or out loud. She said it out loud so I could get used to the proper way to pronounce this word, because I had been mistakenly calling it Daikumyo the whole time, which apparently is not correct, but my teacher said it didn't really matter because my intent was there. So you say your thing Daikumyo about 3 times in your head or out loud at the beginning of your session, as you first lay your hands on your client or hands hovering over your client, or you first start with your distant client. This symbol is used by Reiki masters to open the channels during a Reiki attunement and attune those who want to become Reiki practitioners. So because I was attuned using this symbol, I can now give other people attunements, which is really, really cool. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Raku. This is a grounding symbol. It's another master symbol, but it's grounding. Now we have this lightning bolt one, which you literally, when you want to apply it, you just literally draw a lightning bolt with your finger or with your pen, or you just picture it in your mind. This is like grounding. Okay, right here, right now, we need to come back to earth. This is a good one for when you have been, maybe you've been meditating for a long time, or you've been out somewhere like journeying or astral projecting, and you're trying to get back to earth, back into your normal back into your normal self, because we got stuff to do. We can't just stay in the celestial realm all day. We do have to go to the grocery store. We do have to do X, Y, and Z. So that lightning Raku, really good to just be like, okay, we're back. And then we have this one. This is called the Fire Serpent. I had just been calling it the squiggly one for the last like 3 or 4 years, but apparently it's called Fire Serpent. It's much gentler. So this is like a gentler, or I guess I'm drawing it the wrong way, but this is like a gentler awakening, gentler grounding, coming back to reality. We did meditate on this one as well. And what I saw, first she got me to meditate on the lightning symbol. And then she got me to meditate on the Fire Serpent. And you'd think, because these symbols both do basically the same thing, that I would have had the same experience meditating on each of them, but that's not actually how it went. With the first one, it was like I saw this bright yellow flash. It was like the sun. It's like when you you first open your curtains first thing in the morning and your room's dark, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, the sun. Or you walk outside after being in a dark room and you're just like squinting. You're just like, oh my God, what is this? Except this was not uncomfortable by any means. It was very warm, and I was immediately transported to the backyard of the house that I had grown up in from the time I was a baby till about age 4. And it was just this feeling of like, oh, welcome home. You're back. We're back on earth. Welcome home. And then we meditated on the Fire Serpent. And this one was really interesting because I was expecting something intense. This design reminds me a lot of Kundalini rising energy, which is very intense depending on the person experiencing that type of awakening. That is content for another video. We will talk about that some other time. This one was so much more gentle. I ended up finding myself going from the backyard where I had spent time when I was very, very little to all of a sudden I was in this really quiet garden. And there was like this brick wall behind me, just like beige. I kept seeing beige colors. Just very toned down, muted earth colors. And there was, and I don't know if he was, like what ethnicity this monk was from, but he was a Buddhist monk. He had orange robes. You know, could have been from China, could have been from Thailand. The details, it doesn't really matter. But he was watering some plants, and he was just taking his time walking slowly through here. And he looked at me and he kind of, you know, waved, and he didn't really say anything, but there was just this overwhelming feeling of peace and being gently guided back to earth. So that was an interesting, very, very interesting meditative experience on those Reiki symbols. And now for the part you guys have been waiting for, the actual attunement in which she took me on a shamanic journey. So for people who have never actually done a Reiki lesson or had an attunement before, basically what she had me do was I sat on a chair and I sat as still as I could, which is kind of hard for me. I fidget and I bounce my leg as like a stimming thing. It makes me feel a lot better, but I was able to relax this time. She got some quiet music going. She lit some Palo Santo. It smelled really, really good. She had started this guided meditation, and she had like this really soft, gentle voice that she was doing this with. So it wasn't any like jarring or distracting or anything like that. And she got me to picture just being in a forest. And she said, like, I didn't have to picture myself there. It was just a suggestion. But I ended up feeling like I was transported to this really beautiful outdoor space. It was fall. And literally everything I was seeing was yellow. There were like yellow leaves, yellow grass. I could actually feel, I guess I didn't have shoes or something, because I could actually feel like what it's like to walk barefoot on the grass, where it's kind of soft, but it's also kind of pokey. And that was really strange. And then she brought me to a tree. And she, with other other clients and other students, she told me later that she does often use like tree symbolism because it's what she's most familiar and most comfortable with. And while she was giving me suggestions, I was actually experiencing something completely different once we got to the point where we met this tree. Now this particular tree, he was really big, and I say he was like sentient and alive. He was really big, very weathered and very worn, but still very much alive. There were no leaves. I think if he were a person, he'd have been bald. And he just gave me the name Grandfather Tree. That was his name. So I started calling him Grandfather Tree. And I thought, okay, that's very strange because this is not a usual part of my spirituality, but I'm like, you know what, whatever, I'm just going to go with it. I'm not going to try and control this or whatever. And what Grandfather Tree had done was he kind of welcomed me, and he had draped a red blanket over my shoulders, kind of preparing me for the journey ahead. My teacher had said, you know, to just take a look at the tree. Were there any gifts the tree had to offer me? And she was kind of suggesting like material things, like a crystal or a necklace or whatever. But what I had immediately found, just as she was starting to say this, was I was gifted with two things. I was shown actually, I'll just tell you, I was gifted two things. I was gifted peace and wisdom. Peace came from the root of the tree, of Grandfather Tree. So rooted in peace, and then the wisdom came from the branches. And I liked the symbolism in that. And so I really appreciated that those were the gifts that I had been left with during this journey. A door sort of materialized in the trunk of this tree. And like, keep in mind, this was a big freaking tree. Okay. A door materialized, and he had like arms, branches for, you know, arms, branches, whatever. Kind of almost like a cartoon tree, almost. And he opened this door for me, and he invited me to go inside of the trunk of the tree, this sounds very, very strange talking about it out loud because haven't really processed this or thought about my journey much in the last week. I've been so busy. But during this meditation, I felt this breeze. Now in my house, we didn't have any windows open, we didn't have the door open, we didn't have the fans going or the AC or nothing like that. But I was like feeling this cold, like breezy feeling. I go inside of the tree trunk, and he takes his like branch, arm, hand, and very gently, you know, when you kind of guide someone, you have your hand on their back. It's very much how actually I sort of guide the kids that I look after to go somewhere. I don't push them, but you put your hand on their back and you just gently move them, and then they go off where they're supposed to go. He did that. So I went in, he closed the door for me, and I immediately felt the difference. It's like when it's really, really windy outside, and then you finally go back in, and all of a sudden it's like the wind stops, and you're just like, you're so much warmer and you're so much more comfortable. That's what it was like being inside. And it was quiet, it was safe, it was really safe. I had this overwhelming feeling of safety, which is huge for me because one of my issues lately is with feeling safe in my everyday life. And whatever, working through it, there's some root chakra healing that needs to happen. There's other kind of stuff I got to work through, but this was really nice. I felt like I was 100% cared for and nothing was going to happen. And there were some masters. There were some other healers from elsewhere I guess they came from different parts of history. There was an old native guy. Now I say he was old because even though he still had dark hair, his face was really weathered. It was really worn out. He had his hair in a bun. It was like black, shiny black. In a bun, he had a blue feather and a yellow feather. So I'm going to actually have to look that up if those colors are significant or if those like kind of feathers or whatever are significant. And the first thing that I heard was that this was Sitting Bull. And I thought, well, that's a familiar name. I'm sure I've heard that before. And I looked it up later, and yeah, it turns out he was a real guy, and I actually didn't know anything really about him other than the name. So that was kind of a cool thing. That's probably a topic for another time. He was there. He didn't say anything, but he just looked at me, and it was like he just understood me. And then there's a little girl. She was also Native. She was little, like maybe 4 or 5. And she just had like her hair down, long, kind of wild looking, as kind of like any normal kid who's been playing outside all day. Hair's all messy and all wild. No shirt, but she had a handprint here, like on this shoulder, and a handprint here. One orange, one yellow. I don't know if that means anything or what it means, but it was a nice little detail. I thought it was kind of cool. And her name, it's really hard to get names. Usually when I do, meditations or get intuitive information and stuff like that, but these people were really, really forthcoming with names. This little girl was Song Wind. And it was interesting because when I learned their names, it was almost like Grandfather Tree was still listening and still kind of observing this, and he gave me a name. It was still, comma, silence. The comma was for some reason the comma was very important. I'm still trying to understand this and figure it out, like still, silence. So I was thinking like stillness and silence, but also still as in like it's still silent, like it's continual silence, continual peace. And then I met one more healer, and this was very unique, interesting. This lady, blonde hair, in like a beehive, is that what it is? A beehive, and it was sort of curled, shoulder length. It was like backcombed, big, and then curl at shoulder length. And her name was Ida. She was a housewife, but she was also a healer. And she practiced, my impression was that she practiced in secret, but she was very effective. She didn't say anything either. But she was just there, and she was just observing. So I'm like, cool, that's fine. These masters kind of disappeared after a while. And I found myself sinking down through the trunk of this tree into the roots, into the soil. And the soil was alive. And I thought it was really, really fascinating how the soil had a name. And it was a she. She had her own presence. She had her own energy. And I call her Grandmother Soil because that's what came to mind right away as soon as I got there and started seeing. It was really cool. It's like you guys have probably seen science diagrams of the different layers of the earth underground and how tree roots grow and stuff like that. I was seeing a very similar thing. The different layers of the soil, the different colors. I was seeing like different rocks, different kind of cool stuff. And she was Grandmother Soil, and she was here to help me grow. She was here to nourish my spirit or my soul. So that was amazing. Just sentient soil, sentient rocks, sentient nutrients. It was beautiful. And then I was not in the tree or not aware of Grandfather Tree at all for a little bit. I went to this black place, dark, but I kept seeing flashes of colors. It was indigo and purple. So many flashes of indigo and purple shapes. I was seeing the infinity symbol. I was seeing so many images like zipping by so fast. And my teacher, she did actually have me write down my experience right as it happened. So this is what I'm kind of reading off of. There were so many things I was seeing, like I was telling you, the flashes of color, and then I was seeing images of many different kinds of trees. And I thought this was very interesting because during my first ever Reiki attunement, 6 years ago. Anyways, the first thing I saw during my level 1 attunement was the image of a deciduous tree. And I was told this was the tree of life, and this was this was a guide, this was a spiritual guide. This was also a manifestation of like the essence of life itself. So I was kind of reminded immediately of that very first time I ever met the tree of life. So I saw all kinds of different trees, deciduous, coniferous, trees with nothing, no leaves on them, no nothing. I saw all kinds of human silhouettes, forms. No faces, no details, but some of them were, like an infrared camera, and you just see all these different colors. That's what I was seeing. Some of these human silhouettes were orange, some of them were green, some of them were purple. Some of them were sort of a combination of orange and yellow and red. I saw the image of a running dog. I don't really know if that one represented anything, but it stood out. A running dog. I saw a mom holding a baby, nursing a baby. Then I saw that one of the last things I saw was the image of an open eye. Not exactly like this one, but it looked like a very realistic human eye, open wide. And I started getting chills on my neck and going down my spine, because at this point my teacher had tapped the Raku and Dakomyo, those symbols into my hands and had me put my hands here. And then she touched the top of my head. And I got a chill, like a cold chill from the top of my head, down my neck, down my spine. And eventually it was time to come back. So I made my way back up through the roots of grandfather tree, back into grandmother's soil. The healers, so Sitting Bull and Songwind and Ida, they were no longer there. They had gone off to do whatever they were supposed to be doing. And I was back inside the trunk of grandfather tree, a door rematerialized, and he opened it for me. And I had this feeling of, like I had described earlier with this Raku symbol, like I had likened it to going outside after being in a dark room, or like throwing your curtains open first thing in the morning and it just floods your entire room with light. It was like that same thing. The only difference was it didn't hurt my eyes, which was great. I appreciated that. And I was back in the breeze and in the wind. The door disappeared and grandfather tree started going from the sentient, almost human-like being to just a normal tree. But he left me with this message that I could come back at any time and that he was always there. And that was my attunement process. That was the journey I had gone on. And I ended up with, look at that, a beautiful certificate, which means that I can now go ahead and teach Reiki. I can go ahead and give attunements. And I'm still working out ways to do that, both in person and remotely. But that was my experience with meditating on the Reiki symbols and the shamanic journey that I had been on last week. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to talk about it. And I was so grateful in your guys' interest in my experience. If you want to hear more about this kind of stuff, or maybe my other attunement experiences from the past, just let me know in the comments. Or actually, what I really want to know are those of you who have been on shamanic journeys or other similar types of experiences. What did you go through? What did you experience? What did you see? What did you get to be in? Like, what did you experience? Let me and others in the comments know. Thank you so much for watching. This is a completely unscripted, off the cuff video that I was just so excited to share. Remember to like and subscribe to Santa Rose Metaphysical, and I'll see you again later.